Greetings, YouTubers and Strive members. Welcome back to our channel. I'm glad to be here with you today. Today I'm going to discuss why are rent rolls important. So if you are in the multifamily space, meaning if you have more than one rental unit, you will definitely need to know what rent rolls are. So before I get started, please allow me to introduce myself for those that are not familiar with our platform. My name is Detra Harris, and I am the Managing Director for Strive Wealth Builders. We are a RIA, a Real Estate Investment Association, located in the San Francisco Bay Area. Please visit our website at strivewealthbuilders.com. Learn more about our platform. Join today, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Now let's get started. So what is a rent roll? A rent roll is an essential document that allows landlords and others to easily, the word is easily, view rents that are due and rents that have been collected on an investment property. So if you have more than one unit, you definitely want to have a rent roll. At times, if you have a duplex, two tenants in your property, you may be able to stay on track of that. But if you have more than four tenants in one particular location, you may make sure that you have a rent roll to review regularly. So let's get into it. I'm going to share with you a real true rent roll, but for those beginners, which I usually speak to beginners, I'm going to share with you a rent roll from a fourplex. Now, before I get started in sharing that, let me just give you an example. So we all have heard of roll call in school, right? So we're in school, we have roll call. And why is roll call important for teachers? Because they need to know that all of their students are in the classroom, and if one of their students is missing, well, we need to know where is that student, and we need to contact their parents, or we need to understand why they are not in the class. And more importantly, a lot of teachers have over 20 students in a class, so they need to keep track of who these students are and their progress, and they're responsible for that. Very similar rent roll. Who lives in your building? And then there's a lot of ways to evaluate a rent roll to make sure that you're meeting your goals, and also making sure that you don't have any squatters, that are vacant units that you didn't know about. It's just a rent roll is really important. So let's get into it. Let me share with you my rent roll and the components of a rent roll. So let's get into it. So the first thing that you're going to see on a rent roll, and let me tell you that a lot of rent rolls, depending on what type of software you have for your property, you should have some type of software. There are free softwares available to property owners, especially those that are new, that may have a fourplex or 8 units. You have free software out there. There's no reason why at all you should not have a software that's tracking your property and your property expenses and maintenance, for instance, or just being able to offer your tenants online payment options, which is very, very convenient. So usually a rent roll is going to start with the address. Where is this property located? What address are we speaking of? Because you may have multiple properties, and you want to make sure that you are tracking your rents and your tenants per property. So I suggest that you have separate accounting structures and practices per property. So for this particular property, this one is located in Cincinnati, 1808 Lasantiville. Right at the top, you'll see the date as of, because I ran it today. And then the property address is going to identify all of your current leases and all of your units in this property. It starts with the unit number, which is important. You want to identify the unit number and know who is actually living in that unit. Then it's going to have the tenant name. So you'll see on my example, I marked out the tenant's name For privacy issues, it will have the lease start. So the day that the lease start, that you enter the lease with the tenant, and the lease end. If you notice on my example, it has a at will in that place where lease ends. That means all of these tenants in this building are on month to month, and there's a reason for that, because their lease has ended, and so it automatically goes to month once the lease ends. And then at a later time, I'll discuss with you renewing leases annually or leaving it month to month. It really depends on your strategy for the property. So then it's going to identify what type of unit this person is living in. Is it a 1-bedroom, 1 bath? Is it a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 2 baths, and so on? You want to identify that. A lot of times on rent roll, you may see the square foot, but it's not common. But I've seen that on rent rolls too. Again, it can vary, but typically you will find the same information as we're discussing about this rent roll on many rent rolls, regardless of the software that you're using. Next, you want to have the rent cycle. So again, this is monthly. We charge rents monthly. Is it standard practice to charge rents every 6 months or annually? No, but some landlords, they may accept a tenant's rent that pays for the whole entire year. I've seen it before. Or tenants may pay every 6 months. I've seen that also. But the standard practice is rent is due on the first of the month, and there typically may be some type of grace period. I usually see 3 to 5 days grace period to pay rent. So typically rent is due monthly on the first of the month. Again, I have a rent start date on this rent roll. Some rent rolls will not have a rent start date because usually the lease start date is sufficient. This particular rent roll has a rent start date, which is when we renewed the leases. And that's the date that's there. It does not indicate the date that the tenant moved in. So that's important. What is the rent that you're applying for the rent? This is $540 for this particular unit. What are my charges there? You may see variables in the charges, and that's because when you're purchasing a new property and you ask for the rent roll from the seller, it's a lot of details in these rent rolls that you need to be aware of. So if your charges are different, your reoccurring credits, they may have some reoccurring credits. You want to ask, why are those charges there? Why are there reoccurring credits? And then it's going to come to a total. And then often you'll see also the deposits that are held. On this particular rent roll, we do not have any deposits held for all 4 of these units. No deposits are held, but on average, you will see the deposits held on the unit. So if there's a $500 deposit, if it's equivalent to the first month's rent, you'll see that there. And also when you're purchasing new property, it's really important to understand if there are any deposits on these units, because usually that have to be transferred for you and you have to put it into an escrow account. Another topic at a later time. So then you want to look into prepayments. So sometimes tenants will pay ahead of time, ahead of their monthly rental schedule, which is every month by the 1st. This particular tenant happened to do that, so they've already paid their rent for November. So that's where you see that $535 in. Short us about $5. That's something I have to talk to them about. It keeps riding on and on and on our account for this $5. So we'll send them a balance due. But right now they have a prepayment, so actually they have a credit, and for the next month, which is approaching us that quick. We're going to be out of this year. November 1st is coming up. And so that's usually what you'll see on the rent roll. Now, usually it will total your rents. At the bottom here, you'll see the total rents that you collect on a monthly basis. And then also it will also show any delinquent rents, which is really important. If I had a tenant that was delinquent on their rents, it would show on this report, and then I should monitor that. Especially if you're buying a new property, you want to review the rent roll before you purchase it to make sure you don't have any evictions going on, a tenant that's delinquent, and you have a large balance there. Then when you purchase it, you are going to incur all of these charges and all of the problems that come along with the property. So it's really important to look at your rent roll, evaluate your rent roll. Another really important item to look at on your rent roll is lease end. So all of these properties are at will, meaning it's month to month, but also when you're purchasing new property, you want to see and look at when the lease ends for your tenants for a couple of reasons. They may move out at when their lease ends, or there might be an opportunity for you to increase the rents once their lease ends. And so you want to be able to analyze your rent roll so you can understand how you're going to move forward in the following year. So it's going to total up your totals for your rent and also for your security deposit, so you can see where you stand with that. And then it usually gives you a summary and breaks down to what are your market rents. That's not on here, but you do have the capabilities usually in software to put in your market rents, and that's so you can compare what your current rents are to what the market rents are. And then when you look at your rent increases, you can make an evaluation if you would like to raise the rents, or if you would like to enter into leases or keep it month to month. So that's something you'll have to decide. What's also really great about rent rolls is you can monitor how many units are in the building, what's your occupancy rate in the building, what's your vacancy rate in the buildings, and all of those types of things. So that's your rent roll. Make sure that you monitor your rent roll and watch your rent roll very closely, as it will change on a month-to-month basis. So I hope this video has been helpful for you to understand rent rolls and for you to spend more time evaluating your rent rolls. It's just something important we have to do as property owners. I'll see you next time. Have a great day.